Hello, and welcome to the Parent-Teacher Bridge, where you can get the solutions and resources you need to help your child succeed in school. On this Mailbag Monday, we help Katie, who writes, "My 11-year-old son is really having trouble with reading comprehension. What are some suggestions?" Katie, that is an excellent question, and today I'm going to share with you 5 simple ideas to improve reading comprehension. We often think that a child has trouble reading because they don't say the words correctly, or they say the wrong word. But did you know that there are some children out there who read beautifully, saying every word perfectly, yet at the end of reading, they can't tell you anything they remember. They just don't understand it and comprehend what they have just read beautifully. Let me ask you, has that ever happened to you? Maybe you were reading a difficult legal document or instructions to put something together, and you read it through, and then you thought to yourself, I don't think I remember or understand anything I just read. What is it that you might do? Well, you might go back and read it a time or two, or you might follow with your finger and track your print, or you might read it out loud so you can actually hear yourself reading. Sometimes I've done that, and that definitely helps. So before we go any further, if you want to try those 3 things, have your child read it again, have your child read it aloud, and track their print, try that. If it doesn't help, here's what you can do. Number 1, back up to an easier level book. And you're going to back up far enough that your child is able to read this book, remember it, and retell it with pretty much no problem at all. So they definitely can comprehend it because it is a much easier level. Then you're going to step up to a little bit harder book until you get to the point that they're first having their comprehension difficulties. For example, you might back up to a level such as The Cat and the Hat. Now, most likely, if your child is able to read all those words, they can retell this. After all, we're speaking about an 11-year-old child here. But you may need to move on to a harder level, such as the Henry and Mudge series. They're an early chapter book, but with short chapters. If that's still easy, you can go a bit harder to the Magic Treehouse books. Those are easy chapter books, but the chapters are longer. So to get some more ideas of some different books that you can choose that are written at different levels, check out the link in the description below for the Scholastic book lists and guided reading levels. I think you'll find that very helpful. Hi parents, is your child struggling to read or even hates to read and nothing you have tried has worked? Get my free guide, 5 quick tips to immediately help your struggling reader. I'm going to show you the simple tricks that I've used for years to successfully improve children's reading and their confidence in reading. It's easy, it's simple, and it's free. Just go to theparentteacherbridge.com/reading help. You can find that link in the description below. Number 2, make connections to the text. Remember I said you're going to back up to an easier level book and find at what point are they first starting to struggle with their comprehension. Making connections to the test requires you, as the parent, to kind of model the way you think when you read. For example, read aloud the book with the child and stop and tell them what you're thinking or ask them what they're thinking. What does that remind you of? Does that remind you of another book you've read? Does this remind you of something you've seen on TV or something that's happened in your real life? So by doing so, you are giving the child a few mental anchors to what they've read so that it will be easier to retell in the end because they've made a personal connection to what they've been reading. Now, if your child needs further intervention with this, feel free to jot some notes down on a small notebook or make it a little bit more fun with some Post-it notes where you can jot down what your connections are. And they may find that a bit more entertaining and exciting. If you would like a PDF to help you on making connections as you model this activity with your child, check out the PDF in the description below on making connections to the text. Number 3, practice making mental images while reading. It's easy to read a book and remember what's happened when you have pictures on every page. But as children get into more difficult books, they may not have as many pictures to help them remember what's been going on in the book. And they're going to have to make sort of a movie in their mind as they read the descriptions in the book. To teach your child this, you're going to want to show them how to do this. And it's not going to be perfect, but it can be fun to read something aloud with your child. Don't show them any pictures, and let your child sketch something just very simple and quick on a piece of paper that fits the description with what you've just read in the book. And you can try this as well too, and then compare pictures later on. Now, when I would do this in the classroom, the students loved this. I believe I used Little House in the Big Woods, which does have some pictures, but I did not show them to the children. They had to listen to the descriptions being read, sketch out the picture, and then at the end of the chapter, we would share our pictures together. So that was a fun activity to try. Number 4, go back and reread. So we talked about this a little bit in the beginning of this video, how we as adults, when we come across difficult material to read, that we will stop, slow down, go back, reread, read it aloud, and track our print when we're doing it. But, even as your child is improving in their reading comprehension, they still are going to face certain pages or descriptions from time to time that are more difficult. So you might need to teach your child that it's okay to go back and reread. Maybe do a little check at the end of a page or the end of 2 pages of a chapter book. Have the child ask themselves, what just happened? Okay, this, and this just happened on these 2 pages. If they can't remember, have them go back and reread. Maybe even have them do it aloud. Number 5, don't stop reading books aloud to your child. You can also use some audiobooks, but when you use an audiobook, you don't have the parent to stop and discuss things with. So you might want to consider that as well. When I was a classroom teacher and the students came back from lunch, I always used that time to calm them down and open up a chapter book that we read together every day. This gave the children opportunities to hear a book that was a higher level book that maybe was too high for them to read independently. But we had chances to stop and discuss things within the book. Reading these fiction books can also develop a sense of empathy in a child and put them in someone else's shoes. So there's lots of things you can get from them. But for reading purposes, it exposes the child to different vocabulary, different genres, figures of speech. When I was reading the book The Hobbit with my oldest child, and we did read that one together, not independently by himself, we came to a certain chapter and it said, out of the frying pan and into the fire. So we had that discussion about what that meant, which I believe is a reference to the character in a certain amount of trouble, and then he gets into even more trouble. So my son still remembers that, though. And when your child is learning this new vocabulary, being exposed to reading with a parent, they're going to come across that same vocabulary one day when they're reading by themselves. And it's going to be a whole lot easier to figure out what that word means when they've been exposed to it before. Did you like this video? Don't forget to click like and subscribe below. Check out my free guide, 5 quick tips to immediately help your struggling reader. You'll find the link in the description below. And remember, you are your child's most influential teacher.